You also to ICLEI for hosting this important city summit here at COP15. You know, a provocation is an action to provoke, and I plan to do that just a bit. So first, though, while we celebrate and share knowledge on the role of cities in solving the biodiversity crisis, our negotiators are working to make progress on a powerful and critical post-2020 global biodiversity framework. Though we've had to wait 2 years to get here because of the global pandemic. And I mention that because it matters, because the poly crisis that we are confronting means that every year counts. I think we all know and can feel that this is our Paris Agreement moment for biodiversity, a chance to set strong and ambitious targets for protecting, restoring, and conserving the biodiversity life support system of our planet and of our cities. But is it enough? And we know the answer to that is no. Because as important as this moment is, it is only the start of the real transformations needed to mobilize the political, economic, and human power of our cities to effect a planetary scale change that reconnects the human enterprise to the biosphere. We have an enormous challenge in front of us, which is to leave here and put the many targets into action. And that won't be easy, because we must do nothing less than fundamentally transform the urban development paradigm. We've been hearing amazing examples over the last 2 days of this city summit of progress by mayors, by activists, indigenous communities, designers, ecologists, planners, and many others around the world that are working to build biodiversity back into the way we develop and govern our cities. But the dominant development paradigm still has a stranglehold on the urbanization process. This paradigm is still built by paving over biodiversity, by segregating communities, and driven by carbon-polluting technologies and resource extraction. The 20th century model is not only out of date, but we are nearly out of time to change it before we enter an era of even more difficult challenges. To bend the curves on biodiversity loss, on climate change, on poverty, and other global challenges, we must go beyond incremental transitions. The only answer is to gather together radical visions and innovations for a future that is inclusive, equitable, biodiverse, and resilient, and then to embrace a transformational urban paradigm that can move us along developmental pathways that not only make our cities more livable and more just for all species, but delivers this vision for planetary sustainability. Because we do live on an urban planet. The power to change the planet is with cities. Cities are the engines of innovation, they're the engines of the global economy, and where most of our social capital resides. We have so much potential to leverage cities, not only to enhance urban lives and livelihoods, but to drive a transformation that reverses biodiversity decline and brings us into a safer climate future. However, in the IPCC report that we released earlier this year, one fact among many should concern us. No matter how aggressively we decarbonize, and we must, through and with nature, the next 10 to 20 years of climate change is already built into the climate system. This means that the impacts of climate change we already are battling in our cities will likely increase in frequency, intensity, and severity for at least the next 2 decades. If we fast forward to 2050, just a little bit farther out, more than 1 billion people living in low-lying cities and settlements may be at risk from coastal hazards. Up to 16 times as many people may be exposed to extreme heat in the future, and we know that most people exposed to extreme heat will live in cities. Over 400 million people living in areas that may be exposed to water scarcity through extreme drought if we don't limit warming below 2 degrees Celsius, as if the water scarcity challenges we're already facing are not enough. And multiple climate hazards will occur simultaneously more often. Now, these projections only emphasize even further that our need and reliance on urban biodiversity to address impacts of climate change in our cities, especially from weather extremes, will only grow. Yet we still don't know enough about what it will take for our urban ecosystems themselves to be resilient to pollution, fragmentation, and climate change. If our ecosystems are not able to thrive in our new climate reality, how can we expect them to deliver solutions? The science is showing that we are already perilously close to reaching critical tipping points in our coral reef systems, in the boreal forest, and the Amazon rainforest, and other systems. Without healthy, well-functioning ecosystems, without protecting nature and investing in biodiversity, we will not be able to then rely on nature-based solutions for climate, for health, food, and water provisioning. Now, a hallmark of urbanization is the concentration of people, infrastructure, and economic activity in urban areas. Yet this simple pattern is a key reason cities are so at risk. It's not simply that climate change is driving increasing risks. We create this risk. We have created the conditions that disproportionately put some communities more exposed and make them incredibly vulnerable. And we do this because we have not transformed our urban development paradigm. Not yet, but we can. We still have knowledge to share with each other, gaps to fill, metrics to develop, communities to engage, and to learn from each other how to overcome challenges to mainstream a culture and a commitment to developing and building biodiverse cities. That's why we're launching here at COP the Global Roadmap on Urban Nature-Based Solutions in collaboration with Natura, the Nature Conservancy, and ICLEI and others that will deliver regional assessments around the world of existing knowledge, gaps, challenges, and key opportunities for scaling up investments in urban biodiversity to meet the local to global challenges we face. It's why on Thursday this week, on the 16th, we'll be launching the UN CBD Cities Biodiversity Outlook 2. This is a process with ICLEI and others to help drive forward a post-2020 GBF agenda led by cities. Now, if there wasn't enough provocation before, here it is. An ecologically based urban development agenda has so much potential. I believe in the power of positive visions to create the headwinds for change. But transformation cannot be achieved through incremental change. That's not what transformation is. And that's mostly what we're doing now. Every example we have, and we've been hearing, is incredibly exciting. Every local scale innovation for and with biodiversity is critically needed. But we have not bent the curves, not yet. Transformation means a radical shift in how we build, manage, retrofit, and design our cities. Transformation means a paradigm shift in urban development to one that puts people and nature at the center of every decision, every plan, and every policy. We often talk of urbanization as a challenge. The rapid expansion of urban land area, the incredible growth of the urban population that will drive a need for even more inclusive, equitable, and biodiverse cities at a scale that's frankly kind of hard to imagine. But just to put it in perspective, an estimated US $90 trillion is needed in urban infrastructure to provide the urban services that urban population growth will demand. But this urbanization is not only a challenge, it's also the greatest opportunity we have yet to transform the planet. Recent science argues that the nature of urbanization and urban change of all kinds offers a key opportunity to harness that change, to advance climate-resilient development, and to do so in a way that starts with nature. So what can we do? We can lead, and we already are leading. Cities are where the most progressive and ambitious climate action is taking place. Cities need to be where the most ambitious and progressive biodiversity action takes place, because the future of our human biodiversity connection depends on the relationships we build with nature in cities where most people live. I know we agree that we all want our children to be able to grow up in a city that is embedded in nature, where all urban residents can develop a relationship with the natural world right outside their door. This is possible. This is within our future. But how many streets in your cities do not even have a single tree? How many kilometers of coastline in our coastal cities have hardened edges that separate people from water, when the water is the reason the city was built there in the first place? How many people lack access to quality urban parks? You probably know the answer for that for your city. A transformation in our vision and action in all cities has to be one that centers equity, inclusion, and justice for all species, and that reknits our connection to nature in cities. And it's going to take all of us to do that. And I mean also everyone who's listening online. We're going to need you to, because this is an all-hands-on-deck situation, to right the ship in the middle of the storm. It's abundantly clear that this is the critical decade for biodiversity and for climate change. The future we want depends on how we nurture nature in our cities. And the leadership is here. It's in this room, it's in this building, and I'm really grateful for the chance for us all to learn from each other how exactly we can move from planning to action and from targets to transformation. A transformation in how we imagine and build our cities that puts nature first in ensuring inclusive access to the rights of the city, that ensures finance flows to nature conservation, restoration, and protection as a way to radically shift our urban development trajectory to one where in 10 years or 20 years, all of our children can grow up in cities that are truly green, truly ecological and biodiverse, and with benefits available to everyone. Thank you.